we worked with a group. This is where the ROI and your return financially comes into place. We worked with a group that they had been in a program for 20 plus years, and they just kind of, let it control them and let it happen to them. And we had worked with them for the, last 24 months and started having communications around with their leadership team, the entire leadership team, CFO, people leaders, visionary in a CEO seat. And this is a 600, 700 person organization that they just never spent time on healthcare. But we started talking with their team around, hey, here's the options. Here's how you can take control if you want to. Here's what we would expect it to be. They had a really big problem, though. They had some significant large claims within their program, and they didn't know how to engage their people since they never had. So this was a 2-year designed process of what our strategic communication was. We started very small, just implementing the why. Why are we talking about this? Then we started moving towards specifics of things that their team could do to help the entire plan. And then we got more direct. We got more direct with product and programming and what it meant to the organization long term. Within 6 months, we saw engagement go through the roof. We saw value perception of the plan rise dramatically. But the key piece for them, this impacted about $1.3 million in expected risk, all because they started 2 years prior and said, hey, we want to take control of our healthcare plan as a leadership team. What can we do to do that? And they started doing the process. They built a plan, they built a strategy, they followed it. It gave them the ability to impact their people, engage their people. And we're talking about the plan ROI. We're not talking about the individual's ROI here, which is significant in this scenario too. So that's one example for a large organization that chose to start taking control of what they could control within healthcare and benefits. And it started from the top down.
And you just mentioned it. Where it started was the leadership team was all aligned. They were working together, CEO, CFO, your people leaders, to figure out how do we solve for healthcare. That second step you mentioned was to explain the why to their key people, their mid-level managers. This is where their employees in the field, this is who they report to. So those mid-level managers better know what's happening with healthcare nationally, what's happening at our organization, and then what our people can do about it. So that's what this leadership team decided to do, to take step 2, engage those people. We find, and just sharing with any employer who's interested in learning, sharing the why with your key people is vital. And to set it up, make it simple. The simpler and the shorter, the better. Share what's happening with healthcare nationally. Share what's happening at your specific organization. What have costs done over the last 10 years? What are costs expected to do over the next 3, 4, and 5 years? And what's the number 1 or 2 things that your people can do about it to help? And make those things to start very, very simple. Very baseline, very easy. And then over time, like Brandon mentioned, get more and more specific and direct on clinical programs that'll have an impact on your claims cost. But it doesn't happen in a week. It doesn't happen in a month. As you mentioned, this was a 24-month strategy, starting with the leadership team, going to mid-level managers, going to employees, and then $1.3 million was impacted for the company. And then the individuals on the plan, they were impacted greatly as well.
Yeah. And it excites me because we've seen it move the needle, right? And we're seeing our partners and clients in the space that choose to control what they can, the ones that do it, it's impacting their plan extremely. And these are just the things we can measure. A lot of this can't be measured. And even with all the data we have, even, everything that's out there in the space today, some of this is feel. And there's got to be a belief. There's got to be a belief from the leadership team. There's got to be a belief from employees. And there's not always just, hey, yep, boom, we this ROI here. We put in X, we did this, and there is ROI. That's just not the world we live in. And I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni. And, he talks about a lot of that within some of his consulting and some of his training is around some of these strategies you'll never be able to measure them. But when an entire leadership team is in lockstep on where they're going, what they're doing, and then employees feel that all the way from the top to the entry-level positions, that's when this is all really coming together.